Discipline does not arrive with noise. It does not show up with a rush of energy, a dramatic moment, or a sudden change in your life circumstances. Most of the time, discipline appears quietly, in moments that feel almost insignificant. A morning where nothing feels different, a night where motivation is low, a stretch of time where there is no urgency, no pressure, and no external demand forcing you to act. This is where most people miss it. They expect discipline to feel powerful, obvious, or inspiring. They wait for a signal that never comes. They wait for a feeling that tells them it's time to change, time to work harder, time to take themselves seriously. But discipline doesn't operate on feelings. It operates on decisions. And those decisions are usually made in silence, when there's no emotional push and no one paying attention. Silence strips away the illusion that progress needs drama. It reveals something far more uncomfortable, that change begins when nothing is happening, when no one is watching, when there's no reward waiting on the other side of the action. Discipline begins the moment you move anyway. There is a truth that becomes impossible to avoid once you spend enough time in silence. No one is coming. No one is coming to rescue you from inconsistency. No one is coming to remind you of the promises you made to yourself. No one is coming to enforce your standards when you're tired, distracted, or bored. This realization hits differently in quiet moments. Without noise, without encouragement, without validation, responsibility becomes clear. Everything you want to change in your life sits directly in front of you, and there is no one else standing between you and that work. Silence removes the buffer. It removes the excuses. It leaves you alone with choice. For many people, this feels overwhelming. They mistake it for pressure or fear. But in reality, this moment is freedom. Because once you accept that no one is coming, you stop waiting. You stop negotiating. You stop postponing your own growth. You begin acting from ownership instead of hope. Most people rely heavily on external structure. Deadlines, accountability partners, pressure from others, social expectations. These things can help temporarily, but they are not discipline. They are scaffolding. And scaffolding eventually comes down. Silence exposes whether you've built anything underneath. When the structure disappears, do you continue or do you collapse? Discipline is what remains when nothing is forcing you to act. Silence is the testing ground where that answer becomes clear. This is why silence feels uncomfortable. It removes the illusion that someone else is responsible for your momentum. There's no one to impress, no one to disappoint, no one to perform for. Just you, your habits, and your willingness to follow through when there's no immediate consequence for stopping. If your effort depends on recognition, it will never last. The moment attention fades, your consistency fades with it. Silence makes this painfully obvious. It forces you to confront why you're doing what you're doing in the first place. Are you working for approval, for validation, for the image of discipline rather than its reality? Silence doesn't judge your answers, but it does expose them. It asks whether your standards are internal or borrowed, whether your commitment is conditional or absolute. Discipline begins to form when your answers no longer depend on who's watching. Most people avoid silence not because it's empty, but because it's honest. Silence removes distraction, and without distraction, patterns become visible. You notice how often you delay, how easily you rationalize skipping the work, how quickly comfort becomes an excuse. This awareness is uncomfortable, but necessary. Discipline cannot be built without awareness. Silence gives you that awareness by slowing everything down, by removing the noise that keeps you from seeing yourself clearly. Growth doesn't begin when you feel inspired. It begins when you stop avoiding what silence reveals. There is nothing glamorous about this phase. No visible transformation, no dramatic before and after, just repetition, quiet effort. The same actions done again and again without praise or recognition. This is where discipline is either formed or abandoned. And most people abandon it here because it doesn't feel like progress yet. They underestimate the power of accumulation. They forget that identity is shaped slowly through consistent behavior, not moments of intensity. Silence teaches patience. It teaches respect for the process, and patience is a requirement for real discipline. In silence, you begin to understand the difference between motivation and commitment. Motivation fluctuates. Commitment remains. Motivation depends on mood. Commitment depends on standards. Silence removes mood from the equation and leaves you with a simple question. Will you do what needs to be done today, regardless of how you feel? Answering that question repeatedly is what builds discipline. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but steadily. Silence does not mean stagnation. It means consolidation. It's where momentum is built quietly, without interference. While others wait for the right feeling, discipline is already working beneath the surface. This is why disciplined people often seem calm. They are not rushed. They are not reactive. They are not dependent on external noise. Their structure is internal, built in silence. If you are in a quiet phase right now, this is not a setback. It is an opportunity. A chance to build without comparison, without distraction, without pressure to perform. Silence is not absence. It is focus. And focus is the foundation of discipline. No one is coming. And that is not a threat. It is clarity. It removes illusion and replaces it with responsibility. Responsibility gives direction. Direction builds discipline. This is where it begins, not loudly, not publicly, but quietly, in silence. Once you understand that no one is coming, silence starts to feel different. It stops feeling empty and starts feeling intentional. You begin to notice how much of your life was shaped by noise, opinions, expectations, distractions, constant stimulation. Silence removes all of that, and what's left is raw, honest, sometimes uncomfortable. In silence, there is no audience to perform for, no reaction to chase, no validation to wait on. The work either gets done or it doesn't. And this is where discipline quietly separates itself from motivation. Motivation wants feedback. Discipline does not. Motivation needs reinforcement. Discipline operates on principle. Silence teaches you how often you were relying on pressure instead of commitment. How often your effort depended on urgency instead of intention. When everything slows down, you're forced to confront a simple question. Who are you when nothing is demanding anything from you? That question has weight, because your answer isn't what you say, it's what you do. Silence reveals patterns you didn't want to see before. It shows you where you hesitate, where you compromise, where you choose comfort instead of standards. And it does this without judgment. It simply shows you the truth and waits for your response. Discipline is built in these quiet moments of decision. Not the big ones people talk about, but the small, repetitive ones that never get mentioned. The choice to stay consistent when skipping would go unnoticed. The choice to follow through even when it feels pointless. The choice to maintain standards when no one would blame you for lowering them. Silence does not push you forward. It challenges you to push yourself, and that challenge is subtle. There's no pressure, no countdown, no warning. Just time passing and opportunity slipping quietly by if you don't act. This is why silence is so powerful. It gives you freedom, and freedom exposes character. When you are free to quit, discipline is proven by staying. When you are free to delay, discipline is proven by starting. When you are free to drift, discipline is proven by structure. Silence creates these conditions naturally. It removes urgency and replaces it with choice. And choice, repeated over time, shapes who you become. This is not dramatic work. It doesn't feel heroic, but it is foundational. Because every strong identity is built on actions taken when no one was watching and nothing was forcing them. Over time, something begins to change. Silence stops feeling heavy and starts feeling grounding. You become less reactive, less dependent on stimulation, less distracted by what others are doing or saying. Your focus narrows, your standards sharpen, and discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like alignment. You begin to trust yourself more, not because you feel confident, but because you've proven something quietly. You've shown yourself that you can move without encouragement, that you can stay consistent without recognition, that you can keep going even when the path feels long and uneventful. This is where discipline becomes internal, no longer something you try to summon, but something you operate from. Silence no longer feels like absence. It feels like control. Control over your time, your habits, your direction. And once discipline reaches this point, it no longer needs noise to survive. It doesn't need motivation to spark it. It doesn't need pressure to sustain it. It exists on its own, quiet, stable, reliable. That is the kind of discipline that lasts. That is the kind of discipline born in silence. Silence has a way of removing excuses without confronting them directly. It doesn't argue with you or challenge your reasoning. It simply creates a space where excuses can no longer hide behind noise. When everything slows down and the distractions fade, the explanations you once relied on begin to sound different in your own mind. What once felt reasonable starts to feel thin. The stories you told yourself to justify delay or inconsistency lose their emotional weight. Silence doesn't shame you for these stories. It exposes them. And once exposed, they no longer protect you. In silence, excuses are not reinforced. They are not echoed back to you by others. They are not softened by sympathy or normalized by comparison. They stand alone. And most of the time, when they stand alone, they collapse. Many excuses survive because they are shared, repeated, validated, reinforced through conversation and culture. Silence removes that reinforcement. There is no one to agree with you, no one to reassure you that delaying is understandable, no one to confirm that your standards can wait. This is where accountability becomes unavoidable. Not external accountability, internal accountability. You begin to realize that the reasons you leaned on were not barriers, but buffers. They existed to soften the discomfort of not following through. Silence removes the buffer and leaves the truth exposed. And the truth is simple. Action was always possible. You just didn't choose it. Excuses often appear strongest when life feels overwhelming. When there is too much to do, too much to manage, too much uncertainty. Silence cuts through that overwhelm and reveals something uncomfortable, that avoidance often feels safer than responsibility. When things are noisy, you can blame circumstances. When things are quiet, you can't. Silence shows you that even in chaos, there were small actions you could have taken, small commitments you could have honored, small standards you could have upheld. Discipline is not about doing everything, it's about doing something and consistently. Silence reveals how often you chose nothing instead. One of the hardest realizations silence brings is this: many excuses are emotional, not practical. They are rooted in fear, uncertainty, or discomfort, not impossibility. Silence slows your thoughts enough for you to notice this distinction. You begin to hear the hesitation beneath the explanation, the resistance beneath the logic. And once you hear it clearly, you can no longer pretend the excuse was necessary. This is where discipline begins to replace justification, not by force, but by clarity. When excuses lose credibility, action becomes the only option left. Silence also reveals how often you negotiated with yourself, how frequently you lowered standards in private while maintaining expectations publicly. Noise allows this negotiation to go unnoticed. Silence makes it obvious. You start to see how many promises you made internally that were never meant to be kept. How often you delayed accountability by redefining commitment. Silence removes that flexibility. It asks for honesty, and honesty is uncomfortable at first. But it is necessary, Because discipline cannot grow in an environment where excuses are constantly rewritten. When excuses disappear, discomfort increases. There is no longer a story to hide behind, no justification to soften the weight of inaction. Silence leaves you face to face with choice, and choice demands responsibility. This moment is where many people retreat. They look for noise again, distraction, stimulation, anything to avoid sitting with that responsibility. But those who stay here begin to change. Staying present when excuses fall away is difficult. But it is also powerful, because it forces you to act from truth rather than comfort. Discipline grows strongest when excuses are no longer available, when there is no narrative to protect inconsistency, when there is no explanation left to justify delay. Silence creates this environment naturally. You begin to operate from standards instead of circumstances. You stop asking whether conditions are ideal and start asking whether action aligns with who you're becoming. That shift is subtle, but it is permanent. Silence doesn't motivate you. It clarifies you, and clarity is more powerful than motivation. Excuses often disguise themselves as patience, as self-care, as timing. Silence exposes when patience becomes avoidance and when rest becomes escape. This doesn't mean rest is wrong. It means rest must be intentional. Silence helps you feel the difference. When rest restores you, it feels grounding. When it avoids responsibility, it feels heavy. Discipline is built by recognizing that difference and choosing accordingly. As excuses fade, something else begins to appear. Self-respect. Not the kind built on confidence or success, but the kind built on follow-through. You start to trust yourself more because your actions become consistent with your intentions. Silence reinforces this trust. Every time you act without excuse, you strengthen internal credibility. Every time you follow through quietly, you build integrity. Discipline is not loud confidence. It is quiet reliability. Eventually, excuses stop feeling tempting, not because life becomes easier, but because they no longer align with who you are becoming. Silence reshapes identity before it reshapes outcomes. You stop asking for permission to act. You stop waiting for motivation to arrive. You move because movement is now part of your structure. That structure was built when excuses had nowhere left to stand. Silence does not remove difficulty. It removes avoidance. And once avoidance is gone, effort becomes cleaner, more direct, less emotional. You begin to approach tasks without negotiation. You do what needs to be done because it is part of your standard, not because you feel inspired. Silence trains this behavior by removing the conditions you once relied on. Discipline grows when action becomes default. This is how discipline stabilizes, not through intensity, but through consistency, not through pressure, but through clarity. Silence gives you that clarity by stripping away everything that diluted responsibility. What remains is choice, and choice, repeated daily, becomes identity. When silence removes excuses, it creates space for something stronger to take their place. Structure, commitment, self-respect. This is not dramatic work. It does not announce itself, but it is foundational because once excuses are gone, discipline no longer struggles to exist. It becomes the natural response. Silence changes the way you hear your own thoughts. When the noise fades, the internal dialogue becomes clearer, and with that clarity comes responsibility. You begin to recognize how often excuses were not solutions, but delays dressed up as reasoning. Silence removes the emotional padding from those thoughts and forces you to hear them exactly as they are. Without distraction, there is no way to soften the truth of what you've been avoiding. In this space, you notice that many excuses were rooted in discomfort rather than impossibility. You weren't incapable. You were resistant. Resistance often hides behind explanations that sound logical on the surface, but silence reveals the emotional avoidance beneath them. When there is no external pressure, no deadline, and no one to convince, the real reason for inaction becomes obvious. And once it becomes obvious, it becomes difficult to ignore. Silence also exposes how often you postponed responsibility by convincing yourself that tomorrow would be different. That tomorrow would bring clarity, motivation, or energy that today lacked. But silence teaches you that tomorrow is rarely different unless today is handled differently. It removes the illusion that time alone creates change. Time only magnifies patterns. Silence makes those patterns visible. This is where discipline begins to harden. When excuses no longer feel believable, action becomes the only honest response. Not dramatic action, not extreme effort, just consistent movement forward. Silence doesn't demand perfection, it demands truth. And truth leaves very little room for excuses to survive. As silence continues to remove excuses, it also reshapes how you relate to effort. You stop treating action as something that requires emotional permission. You stop waiting to feel aligned before moving. Instead, you begin to see effort as a standard. Something you do because it is part of who you are becoming, not because the conditions feel ideal. Silence reinforces this shift by eliminating emotional negotiation. You start to understand that excuses were often attempts to protect your comfort rather than your well-being. Comfort feels safe in the short term, but it quietly erodes confidence over time. Silence makes that erosion visible. It allows you to feel the subtle weight of inaction, not as guilt, but as awareness. And awareness changes behavior when you stay with it long enough. This process is not fast, and it is not dramatic. Silence does not flip a switch. It sharpens perception. Day by day, you become less tolerant of explanations that keep you stagnant. You become more attentive to the gap between intention and behavior. And instead of filling that gap with justification, you begin filling it with structure. Small, deliberate actions replace broad promises. Eventually, excuses lose their emotional appeal. They no longer offer relief. They no longer feel convincing. Silence has trained you to recognize them as distractions rather than protections. What remains is discipline, not forced, not loud, but steady. A discipline built on clarity, reinforced by responsibility, and sustained by the quiet understanding that excuses have nothing left to offer. Discipline often feels lonely because it changes how you move through the world, not in obvious ways, but in subtle ones. Your schedule shifts. Your priorities realign. Your tolerance for distraction decreases. And slowly, without announcement, you begin to separate from the patterns that once kept you connected to others. Most people are bonded by shared habits, not shared direction. When those habits change, the connection weakens. Silence makes this visible. You notice fewer conversations, fewer invitations, less overlap. Not because you did something wrong, but because you chose differently. Discipline removes you from environments built around comfort. It asks you to spend time alone with effort, repetition, and restraint. That time is quiet. And in that quiet, loneliness often surfaces, not as punishment, but as transition. Loneliness is not always a sign of loss. Sometimes it is a sign of movement. Many people interpret loneliness as failure, as evidence that something is missing or broken. But discipline reframes loneliness entirely. It shows you that solitude is often the cost of alignment. When you begin acting in accordance with your standards, fewer people will naturally fit into your rhythm. Silence magnifies this experience. Without constant interaction, you feel the absence more clearly. You notice the space where noise used to be, and that space can feel uncomfortable if you are not used to sitting with yourself. But discipline teaches you something important here. Discomfort does not mean danger. It means adaptation. Loneliness is often the body and mind recalibrating to a new structure. If you can stay present through this phase, it passes. What remains is clarity. Discipline isolates you because it reduces dependency. You stop relying on others for momentum, validation, or direction. You begin generating those internally. Silence supports this shift by removing constant feedback and forcing self-trust to develop. This is where many people turn back. They mistake independence for isolation. They seek noise again, not because they need it, but because it feels familiar. Discipline asks you to resist that urge and remain steady. Loneliness is often loudest at the beginning of discipline, before identity stabilizes, before the internal structure feels reliable. Silence holds you in that gap until you learn to stand on your own consistency. That lesson cannot be taught in company, it must be learned alone. When discipline begins to take hold, conversations change. Interests diverge. What once felt engaging starts to feel repetitive. What once felt important begins to feel optional. Silence highlights this contrast sharply. You may find yourself less interested in explaining yourself, less motivated to justify your choices. Discipline reduces the need for approval, and with that reduction comes distance, not hostility, just space. This space can feel empty if you expect connection to come from familiarity. But discipline teaches you to seek connection through alignment instead. Fewer people, deeper resonance. Loneliness in this phase is not a lack of connection. It is a refinement of it. Silence teaches you how often you used others to avoid yourself. Conversations to escape thought. Activity to escape stillness. Discipline removes these escapes and leaves you with reflection. Reflection can feel heavy when you are not accustomed to it. You notice your doubts more clearly, your inconsistencies more honestly, your fears more directly. Loneliness amplifies this awareness because there is no distraction to dilute it. But awareness is not the enemy, it is the gateway. Discipline grows when you stop running from what reflection reveals and begin responding to it with structure. Loneliness becomes manageable once it is understood as part of the process, not a flaw in it. There is a stage in discipline where you feel disconnected from both your past and your future. Old habits no longer fit, but new identity has not fully formed. Silence holds you in this in-between state. This is one of the loneliest phases, and also one of the most important. Because here, discipline is being internalized. You are no longer driven by who you were, but not yet reinforced by who you are becoming. Many people retreat here because uncertainty feels unsafe. But discipline requires you to remain stable even when identity feels unfinished. Silence provides the space for that stability to develop. If you endure this phase, confidence follows. Not loud confidence, but quiet certainty. Discipline teaches you to be selective with energy, with attention, with access. Silence reinforces this selectivity by limiting external influence. You begin to notice how draining certain environments were, even if they felt normal. Loneliness can surface when you remove those environments, but it is often temporary. What replaces them is focus, and focus requires solitude to mature. Silence allows focus to deepen without interruption. It trains you to sustain effort without social reinforcement. That ability is rare, and it cannot be rushed. Loneliness fades as focus strengthens. Over time, discipline changes how you experience solitude. What once felt isolating begins to feel grounding. Silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling controlled. You are no longer alone with uncertainty. You are alone with intention. This shift does not happen suddenly. It develops gradually as consistency builds trust within yourself. You realize you can rely on your routines, on your standards, on your ability to follow through. Loneliness loses its edge when self-trust replaces external dependence. Silence becomes a place of restoration instead of discomfort. At this point, discipline no longer feels lonely. It feels self-contained. People often assume disciplined individuals are isolated by choice, but the truth is simpler. Discipline filters. It does not reject, it clarifies. Those who align remain, those who don't, drift. Silence makes this filtering visible, but not painful once accepted. You begin to understand that not everyone is meant to walk every phase with you. Discipline requires seasons of solitude. These seasons are not permanent. They are preparatory. They create space for growth without interference. Loneliness in this context is not abandonment. It is alignment in progress. If discipline feels lonely right now, resist the urge to fill that space prematurely. Silence is doing work beneath the surface. It is strengthening your independence, refining your focus, and stabilizing your standards. Loneliness does not mean you are off course. It often means you are early in the process. Before results appear, before identity solidifies, before momentum becomes visible. Discipline asks you to remain steady here, to trust the structure you are building quietly, to let silence complete its work. This section does not end with resolution, it leaves room, because loneliness passes in stages and discipline is still forming. Most of the work that builds discipline happens in places no one ever sees. Early mornings when the world is still quiet. Late nights when energy is low and excuses feel reasonable. Repetitions that look unimpressive from the outside and feel monotonous from the inside. This kind of work does not attract attention. It does not generate praise. It does not come with recognition or reassurance. Silence surrounds it completely, and that silence often makes the effort feel invisible, even to yourself. Many people lose momentum here because they expect acknowledgement to confirm progress. They want proof that the work matters. Silence offers none. It asks you to trust the process without external validation. Discipline grows when you continue anyway. Praise creates momentum, but dependence on praise creates fragility. When effort relies on recognition, it collapses the moment attention disappears. Silence removes that dependency by eliminating the expectation altogether. When no one is watching, effort becomes honest. You stop performing productivity and start practicing consistency. You begin to measure progress by internal standards rather than external response. This shift is uncomfortable because it removes emotional reward, but it is also stabilizing. Discipline becomes less reactive and more deliberate, less emotional and more structural. Silence does not celebrate you, but it strengthens you. There is a difference between visible work and meaningful work. Visible work is often optimized for appearance. Meaningful work is optimized for results. Silence strips work of appearance and leaves only substance. This is why disciplined people often look unremarkable early on. Their effort is not dramatic. Their progress is not obvious. Their routine looks repetitive. But beneath that repetition, structure is forming. Silence protects this stage from interference. It keeps you focused on fundamentals instead of performance. It prevents premature comparison and unnecessary pressure. The work no one praises is often the work that lasts. Most people are willing to work hard when effort is rewarded quickly. Few are willing to work steadily when rewards are delayed. Silence extends the distance between effort and outcome, and in doing so tests commitment. This delay feels discouraging if you expect immediate feedback. It feels pointless if you measure progress emotionally. Discipline requires a different metric. It requires trust in accumulation. Silence teaches you to respect delayed returns, to understand that growth compounds quietly before it becomes visible, to accept that some progress cannot be felt while it is happening. Those who endure this phase gain durability. The absence of praise often reveals motivation. When no one notices, you discover whether the work was ever about improvement or simply about being seen. Silence answers that question honestly. This realization can be uncomfortable. It exposes ego. It challenges intention, but it also clarifies purpose. Discipline strengthens when effort is detached from recognition. You begin working because it aligns with who you are becoming, not because it produces applause. That alignment is quieter, but far more stable. Silence filters motives until only commitment remains. Unpraised work builds a different kind of confidence, not confidence based on feedback, but confidence based on reliability. You begin to trust yourself because you show up consistently, even when nothing reinforces the behavior. This self-trust compounds. It creates calm. You stop questioning whether you are capable because your actions have already answered that question. Silence reinforces this trust by removing distraction. The work no one praises slowly becomes the work you respect most. That respect becomes internal authority. Many people abandon discipline because they mistake silence for stagnation. They assume that if nothing is happening externally, nothing is happening at all. In reality, silence is often when the most important work is occurring. Habits are stabilizing, identity is forming, structure is solidifying. These changes are subtle and difficult to measure, but they are foundational. Silence allows these changes to occur without interruption. It prevents premature evaluation. It keeps you focused on execution instead of outcome. Discipline matures when you stop needing evidence and continue regardless. There is a humility required to continue unpraised work. You accept that progress does not always feel rewarding, that effort does not always feel meaningful in the moment, that discipline often feels repetitive and restrained. Silence reinforces this humility by removing the illusion that effort should feel exciting. It teaches you to value consistency over intensity. This humility strengthens discipline because it removes entitlement. You stop expecting the process to entertain you. You respect it for what it produces over time. That respect keeps you grounded. Eventually, the work no one praises begins to speak quietly for itself, not through announcements, but through outcomes, through stability, through consistency under pressure. By the time results appear, discipline is already ingrained. You are no longer chasing recognition. You are operating from structure. Silence has already done its work. Others may notice later, but by then, their attention is irrelevant. The foundation has been set. Discipline does not seek acknowledgement once it is established. If your work feels unseen right now, resist the urge to compensate with noise. Silence is not neglecting you. It is refining you. The absence of praise is strengthening your independence and sharpening your focus. This phase is not meant to be comfortable. It is meant to be formative. Discipline grows strongest when it is built without applause. Stay with the work. Respect the quiet. Let the structure deepen. There is more forming beneath the surface, and this section remains open as that work continues. One of the quiet challenges of unpraised work is resisting resentment. When effort goes unnoticed for long periods, it can slowly turn into frustration if expectations are not managed. Silence tests whether your discipline is rooted in commitment or entitlement. Resentment forms when you believe effort deserves immediate acknowledgement. Discipline dissolves that belief. It teaches you that effort is not a transaction, it is an investment, and investments require patience before they show returns. Silence removes the scoreboard. It prevents you from constantly checking whether your work is being seen, appreciated, or rewarded. That removal is intentional. It forces you to focus on execution rather than outcome. When resentment fades, discipline stabilizes. The work becomes cleaner, less emotional, more sustainable. Unpraised work also sharpens discernment. You begin to recognize which tasks truly matter and which ones only existed to create the appearance of progress. Silence removes performative effort and leaves only what produces real change. This clarity changes how you allocate energy. You stop overextending. You stop seeking efficiency for show. You simplify. Discipline becomes quieter but more precise. Silence supports this precision by limiting external influence. There are no opinions pulling you in different directions, no comparisons distorting your priorities, just standards guiding your actions. This is where discipline becomes refined, not louder, not faster, but more exact. And this refinement is still ongoing. At a certain point, silence stops feeling like absence and begins to feel like control. You no longer interpret quiet as something missing. Instead, you recognize it as space you have intentionally created. Space to think clearly, space to act deliberately, space to maintain standards without interference. This shift is subtle. It doesn't arrive with confidence or certainty. It arrives through familiarity. Silence becomes less intimidating because you've spent time there. Discipline grows because you no longer associate quiet with discomfort or doubt. When silence becomes familiar, your reactions slow. You respond instead of react. You move with intention instead of urgency. Discipline settles into your routine as something stable, not forced. This is the beginning of independence. As discipline stabilizes, the need for external motivation fades. You stop seeking encouragement because you no longer require it to act. Silence supports this change by removing constant stimulation and allowing consistency to take its place. You begin to trust your structure, your schedule, your standards. The repetition that once felt restrictive now feels grounding. Discipline becomes the framework that holds your days together. This trust is not loud or emotional, it is practical. You know what needs to be done, and you do it without debate. Silence reinforces this behavior by making action the default. At this stage, discipline is no longer something you practice. It is something you operate from. There is a calm that comes from not needing noise to feel validated. You stop explaining yourself. You stop justifying your choices. Silence becomes sufficient because your actions are consistent. This calm does not mean passivity. It means stability. Discipline allows you to move through challenges without overreaction, without seeking reassurance, without needing immediate resolution. Silence sharpens this stability. It removes unnecessary input and keeps your focus narrow. You are no longer pulled in multiple directions by opinion or comparison. What remains is alignment. As alignment deepens, discipline becomes quieter. There is less effort involved in maintaining it because it is no longer dependent on emotion. Silence supports this by minimizing friction. You no longer resist routine. You respect it. This respect changes how you experience difficulty. Challenges are no longer personal. They are procedural, something to work through, not react to. Discipline provides a framework for this response. Silence reinforces patience. It slows time just enough for you to act intentionally rather than impulsively. This patience compounds into long-term consistency. At this point, discipline is sustainable. If this episode ends here, it ends intentionally, not with intensity, but with stability. Discipline does not need a dramatic conclusion. It needs continuity. Silence does not announce progress. It confirms it quietly, through repeated action, through maintained standards, through the absence of negotiation. If more work remains, silence will hold space for it. If this phase is complete, silence will mark that as well. Either way, discipline continues. Because once discipline is born in silence, it no longer depends on noise to survive. Discipline does not end with achievement. It does not arrive at a finish line and stop. It becomes a way of moving through life quietly, consistently, without the need for reinforcement. Silence remains, not as something you endure, but as something you choose, because silence is where clarity stays intact and standards remain uncompromised. At this point, you are no longer building discipline from scratch. You are maintaining it, protecting it, allowing it to guide decisions without emotion or urgency. The need to prove yourself fades. The need to explain yourself disappears. What matters now is continuity, showing up the same way tomorrow and the day after, regardless of conditions. This is where discipline becomes invisible to others, but undeniable to you. Your life begins to reflect structure without announcement, stability without display, strength without noise. Silence holds all of this together, not as isolation but as control over direction. And if there is one thing to carry forward from this episode, it is this. Discipline is not something you turn on, it is something you return to, quietly, repeatedly, in silence. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos.